cost in there for this policy, this asset, to beat this asset. That's how valuable this asset is right here. I don't need the term cost to beat it. So if you lay these two things side by side, and lay the one that says 1%.
The cost of insurance, this one?
Yep. So we're looking at the 1% against the, not the cost analysis, go to the other sheet. Gotcha, you both got it? Okay, now put your hand on the policy, I'm sorry, go up and put your value on the accumulation value and on the adjusted accumulation total.
The right ones here. Which one are you looking at?
1%.
Got it.
Yeah, well, 1.5 and a 1%, just use the 1%. All that means is I'm charging either 1.5% fees or I'm charging a 1% fee. You will not find an investment strategy out there where they're only gonna charge you 1% fee. Not with this little bit of money. They will charge you at least 1.5, closer to 2%, okay? So using 1% is being very generous to this side of the table. But what we're doing is we're comparing an IUL against a Roth IRA. These are the only two vehicles that exist that allow you to accumulate money tax deferred, to grow it tax deferred, and to pull it out tax exempt. No other policies, no other programs exist that allow you to do that particular thing. The advantage that the life insurance has over the Roth is twofold. Number one, the Roth, investing in the marketplace, nobody's going to guarantee you won't lose money. The life insurance, they give you the guarantee that you can't lose to market loss. Okay? The second thing is that the life insurance ultimately is less costly than the Roth and therefore will create more cash value. But that's not where life insurance gets its bad name. Life insurance gets its bad name because in the first 10 years, it's an ugly looking product. Look at the value. So look at year one. Now remember, we are accumulating these products side by side over a long period of time for the purpose of creating tax-free income in the future, correct? Mm-hmm. So our purpose for this money is not to take it out in 5 years or in 10 years, is it? The purpose of this money is to create an income. It's called the bucketing concept. People will argue, well, this is better than this because this does this in the short term. I'm not using short-term money for this product. I'm only using long-term money for this product. So only talk to me about your long-term investment over here. Don't try to compare a short-term investment with a long-term asset. It's not a legitimate comparison. So if we're going long-term, in year one, the Roth has $133,000 total, and the life insurance has $119,000. After 1 year, which would you rather have? The Roth, 133, but I'm not doing this short term. If while waiting for the long term I die in year one, I get 133 for the Roth, right? What do I get for the life insurance?
1 million.
1 million. Which would your family rather have? The 133 or the 1 million? Okay, so year one, which is a better product? Life insurance. Go down to the 10th year. You see 414,000 on the Roth. You see 300,000 on the life insurance. Which would you rather have if you were alive? The 414,000, right? But this isn't for short term. This is for long term. If I die in year 10, on the Roth my family gets 414,000. On the life insurance my family gets $1 million. Which would your family rather have? So in the 10th year, which is the better product? Life insurance, go over in the long term. Go down to the 20th year. Now I see 676,000 in the Roth, and I see 533,000. Let's go down to the 15th year. I see 638,000 in the Roth, and I see 503,000 in the life. Which would I rather have? The 638. Because now I'm going to start pulling income. So isn't it better to pull income off the 638 than it is to pull income off the 503? Wouldn't you rather have 638,000 pulling income off of? Okay, but I'd rather have the 503 because of the way it's established. Notice that I'm pulling the same income, go over here to the income level, I'm pulling 25,000 a year off of both of them, starting in the 16th year. See that 25,000 over there? See it there, you see it there. So you see 25,000 coming down that I'm pulling off of income, and it's getting a 3% increase every year. And I'm pulling the exact same income out of both places, aren't I? No difference there, is there? Let's go back to the cash values. So in the 15th year, my cash value is 638. What eventually starts to happen to that cash value? It's going up for the next 10 or 12 years, but then what does it start to do as that income gets higher? It starts to decrease. What happens to my cash value, the cash value column, the second from the right,
Sorry. Oh, yeah. I'm blank here.
what happens to that cash value every year?
Continues to go up.
It continues to go up,
Yeah.
and it continues to go up. And if we get down to the 35th year, I've got 675 in the Roth and 738 in the life insurance. Which would you rather have if you lived?
738.
If I die, I get 675 in the Roth, and my family gets 831 in the life insurance. Which would I rather have? So eventually, the life insurance actually outperforms the Roth, both cash value and death benefit. Why?
Because the market loss, guaranteed market loss.
Nope. There's no market loss in either one of these. But if I showed a market loss, yes, that would be a true statement.
Because you're building value as you're pulling
I'm
out
building
the-
value in both places, but why? Here's the question, I just got an email from a client saying, explain to me how come the Roth, how come I can pull out more money from the life insurance than I can from the Roth?
Lower costs.
And the answer is lower costs. There's less cost in the life insurance than there is in the Roth. Again, if you go to that next page, the cost page, you look in the 30th year of the Roth, the cost is $7,110. I look in the 30th year of the life insurance, and the cost is $1,956. See the difference in the cost between those two products? So here's the cost of the Roth, the 30th year. There's the cost of the Roth. There's the cost of the life insurance in the 30th year, right over here. Which cost would you rather have?
19.
So is the cost in the Roth, the mutual fund fees in the Roth?
The mutual fund fees in the Roth are greater than the internal insurance costs. In fact, from the 11th year on, that's true in most policies. That's why the first 10 years, most life insurance policies look ugly against most other comparisons. And they will always look ugly because the cost of the life insurance is greater than the cost of the Roth. But the reason the cost of the life insurance is greater is because it provides a tax-free death benefit, which the Roth doesn't provide. And it's that cost-free, that tax-free death benefit that makes it a better long-term product. Because I don't need the cash value in the short term, because I'm not using it for short term.
So are the costs in the life insurance the term insurance premiums, or is it the somewhat same costs in the Roth for the investment,
No, the
Choice.
cost in the Roth is simply the management fees.
the
The
management
cost
fee?
in life insurance policies are the four costs we talked about. Okay? If you can solidify that in, it can give you more confidence when you get the onslaught of this is a lousy product. Because in the first 10 years, I agree. It's a lousy short-term asset
If you don't die.
if you don't die. But if you die, it's the best asset you can have.
It's still good because you're.
And I'm not putting this in a client's portfolio for the short-term cash values. I'm putting it in the client's portfolio short-term wise in case they die too soon. All right?
So somewhat similar concept. If you tried to sell a house after 1 or 2 or 3 years, you're not gonna make
get
any
your
money
value out of it.
because you haven't offset the closing costs and the
It's-
realtor
It's
fees.
the same thing of buying a house versus renting. which costs me more out of pocket? Buying the house. But which is better for me long-term? Buying the house. It works the same way. In fact, I did a presentation one time about, 20 years ago, that showed life insurance as property. And I simply described it as a piece of property that people were buying. And I asked them, would you want that piece of property? And every investor I talked to said, yeah, I'd love it. It's a great piece of property. It's a life insurance, a whole life insurance contract that I was describing to them. Okay? Because that's exactly what this does. Do you understand that? That's the confidence that I want you to have in the product. Okay, questions on that? Okay, it's almost 11 o'clock. You have had, I would guess, one of the best CE credits that you could get. I think you said it.
Yeah.
On life insurance and the IUL that you could possibly get.
Yeah.
This was really a power-packed time frame. A lot of great information. I've got a presentation. Now, just to give you my background, I started off, my father died when I was 19. I was a wedded kid in college. I stiff-armed God. Money became my God. I became very proficient at handling money. I learned basic principles that I eventually found out had been created 2,000 years prior to my existence, but they were principles that always work in finances. And in 1975, I put them together in a thesis, and I created what's called the Four Cornerstones. And what this is literally my philosophy of money management since I was 19 years of age. And what it does is it ties together all the aspects of money management that one needs to learn to be successful financially, whether you buy a product or not. This is the process. So what I did when I first started out is I would sit down and I would give this presentation. This is all I would do. I would sit down and I would share this with clients. It would take me about 45 minutes to do. And I'd go through the whole presentation, and at the end I said, is this a philosophy you agree with? And they said, I love it. And one guy said, I love it, show me where it says in the Bible and I'll do it. Now remember, I had stiff-armed God, so I didn't care about the Bible. I was an E&C guy. But I knew him, and I knew that he literally had the Bible memorized, which he did do. And so I just simply said to him, why don't you show me? For the next 45 minutes, he sat down and showed me, in many cases, word for word, where what I had just said to him was already in Scripture. I came to the undeniable conclusion that had I read this book called the Bible, I'd have been forewarned about a lot of the losses I had and foretold about many of my successes. And I actually got into the Bible and started learning it. And so the reason this works is not because I'm so smart. It's because God was a whole lot smarter than me and put it in Scripture 2,000 years ago. And it works. And it's been working all that time, and it will continue to work. Not because it's my creation, but because it actually is biblically oriented and works. Now, it's 11 o'clock. You were told this meeting lasts until 11. Paul and I want to honor that. But if you'd like me to, I will go through this presentation for you.
Yeah, could you?
All right?
My appointment is at 11:40, so.
Do it for the camera, John.
The presentation is two parts. The first part is something that Paul and I learned when we first came into business, and it's a health education and welfare survey that shows what happened to the average Americans from start to finish. And basically what the survey says is the average individual earns their first regular income somewhere between the ages of 18 and 25. That income tends to go up until they hit 50 or 55. Income tends to level off to 65 for Social Security, and then income drops based on how long they've worked and how hard they work. People during that time earn anywhere from $890,000 during that 40-year period to $1,560,000 during that same 40-year period. But the statistics still seem to remain the same regardless of how much money they earned, because of how they spent their money only about 4% of the entire population ended up what the survey defined as well-to-do. And today, well-to-do is defined as anyone that's creating an income of $40,000 or more outside of Social Security. That's considered well-to-do by the survey. Median income, or I'm sorry, the poverty income is considered $7,000. So anyone that's only creating $7,000 is considered poverty. The people in between that is 14%. Anyone earning $30,000 or more outside of Social Security is considered financially independent. So in other words, they're saying, the survey is saying that anyone that has 30,000 plus of Social Security should be able to do pretty well in society. People that are earning $40,000 plus of Social Security are in the top 4% financially. That just goes to say how poorly America is doing overall financially. The people between 7,000 and 30,000, there's 44% of that, and the median income or middle income is 16,000. That means as many people, 22 of those 44 were earning over 16,000, and 22 of those 44 were earning under 16,000. Here's the travesty of that one. If you take the 22 plus the 14, that's 36, plus the 4 is 40, only 40% of the population, after working an entire lifetime, were making more money than my son made his first year out of college. That's how poorly America's doing financially. They need your help to go out and help them understand that the only way you're going to have enough money is if you learn how not to spend it all. And basically what the survey ended up concluding is that out of the 100%, basically 16% of them were dead by the time they reached 65, and 66% of them were dependent on some other form of income other than their own to make ends meet financially. So 82% of the population ended up either dead or dead broke, according to the survey. That's why there's a necessity for you to be out there to talk to them. Now, in my history, I found that there are 3 things that create a good plan. Number 1 is knowledge. You need to know what's going on, but you not only need to know it, someone needs to be there to help you understand that knowledge. Knowledge in and of itself is not enough. It's the understanding of that knowledge that gives you wisdom. That's what Proverbs says. And wisdom with understanding is knowledge, and that's the knowledge you need to make the decisions. And that's the second place people fail. They do not make a decision to move forward. They're given the information, and what do they say? I
Want to
want
think
to
about
think
it.
it over. Well, thinking doesn't get them there. They need to make a decision and move. So I pretty much ask people to make a decision one way or the other with me. Either you tell me no or you tell me yes. You tell me you want to move forward, or you say goodbye, thanks for the information, and I'll go my merry way. But the key is the third one, and that is you got the knowledge with the understanding, you make a decision to move forward, and then you put the plan into action. And that's the third place people fail. They do not put a plan into action. So what I would say that your commitment should be to your clients is to give them knowledge with understanding so that they have the wisdom to make the proper decision, and then work with them in putting that plan into action. If you do that, then I would suggest that you're going to help your clients be in that top 4% or even the top 1% financially. Questions on that part of it? Okay, that's the statistical part of it. Here's the informational part of it. That knowledge begins by knowing there are 4 areas financially: short-term, long-term, investment, and insurance. Let me just define these 4 areas so we're talking the same language. The short-term is that area where you put your money immediately. It's your checking account, your savings account, your credit union, your money market account, your CDs. This is where your money is secure. You know you can put it, so you know you can get it out. It's liquid. You can get your hands on it. But if you get your hands on it, what happens to it? You spend it, and that's the purpose of this area. It's called the put and take area. I'm putting money in specifically to take it out and spend it. And any money you put in here, you will spend. In fact, most people, if you look at the statistics on the internet, it says 110% of the majority of people are living on 110% of their income. They're spending every dollar they have plus credit cards to spend the rest. So they're in debt up to their eyeballs. That's not where we want them to be. This area also includes emergency dollars, and it also includes cash reserves. But this is the area, and where we work with this is through what's called budgeting. I have an Excel sheet that I send to my clients, and my clients utilize that to track their spending. I give them a track to run on, so they can see exactly where their money, their income versus their outflow. It's called a profit and loss statement. All right, a cash flow statement. It's one of the two most primary pieces of information your client should have. Cash flow. Okay. The other one is called a asset versus liability sheet. And that's the other sheet that they should have. The two sheets that they should have constantly. Budgeting done monthly, personal financial statement done annually. All right? The long term, that's a put and keep type of an account. That's where I'm going to put money away and leave it there. Like the short term, it's secure. But unlike the short term, it's non-liquid. That means there's going to be penalty for early withdrawal. Now, if there's going to be penalty for early withdrawal, what are you going to tend not to do with that money?
Don't take it out.
You're not going to take it out. You're going to leave it in there and let it grow. All right? Where the short-term account is taxable, the long-term account is tax exempt. So it grows tax deferred. And there's a difference between taxable account and tax exempt account. Taxable account means I'm going to be taxed on it every single year. Every year I'm going to get my 1099 INT or my 1099 DIV. I'm going to get those every single year. Over the tax exempt, I'm not going to get any tax statements. It's going to be growing without taxation. The third area, the investment area, that's where I'm going to take risk. So I'm going to take a little bit more risk down there, but with risk comes the reward, but it also could be the loss. So I'm not guaranteed that my money's going to still be there. These would be the bonds, the investment real estate, the mutual funds, the stocks, the collectibles, the commodities. More risk, more reward. And then the final thing is the insurance, and that's the protection umbrella. Questions on the four areas? All right, now let's just take a break here for a minute. The explanation that I just gave, pretty concise, wasn't it? Didn't take a long time. Took me less than 5 minutes. Was it concise? Would it be helpful to people to have that kind of information?
I think so, yeah.
So they can see where everything fits?
Yes.
All right. That's the purpose of that stage of it, just to describe the whole setting. Now I'm going to take them through a 6-step process. So as we're building, if you're going to build a house, and I will sometimes, stories are good, by the way. Okay, so if you have some stories, it's good to have them. Here's a story. I have a $250,000 home here, and I have a $500,000 home here. You walk around the outside of the home, it looks exactly the same. You walk in through the door, go up to the second floor, back down the stairs, outside, it looks exactly the same. There seems to be no evident difference between the two houses. Based on that information, which would you buy? The 250. Now let me explain a little bit more about it. This $250,000, see this $500,000 home, they dug a hole down in there, and they put in these footings and foundations. And they put in their 13-course brickwork. And they spent all that money with all this. Here they just leveled off the ground, put on a slab of cement, and built the house here. On this house here, they used 2x6s, 16 inches apart. Here they used 2x4s, 24 inches apart to build the frame. Here they used 2x10s, 24 inches apart. Here they used 2x6s, 30 inches apart to build the trusses. Here they put on the best firewall they could put on. Here they put on the least expensive plywood board they could put on. Then they put on the trapping so they look exactly the same. $250,000 home, $500,000 home. Which would you rather buy? The 500. You're not going to buy this one. It's going to fall apart the first bad weather we get, isn't it? It'll crumble. But this is the financial home that most people live in. Do you understand that?
It's gonna crumble.
It's going to crumble. we need to help them by giving them knowledge and understanding of the knowledge, so they have the wisdom to make the right decisions, to put the proper plan into action, to build the proper home. That's what we're doing here. We're building a solid home. So steps 1 and steps 2, the insurance in the long term, are our footings and foundations of our financial home. That's where we're setting the brickwork that's not gonna crumble. And that's important to get them, to help them to understand that we need to set this up first. But we don't have to give up the future, as you're seeing right here. A Roth, which goes down in this area, and the life insurance, which is in this area, I don't have to give up anything to establish this, do I? That's what I need the client to understand. But I need to see, they need to see the process first before we show them the product. So step 1 is insurance. Now, Steve gave you a chart that you go to in that fancy form you fill out. I do what's called a human life value. Now you can learn how to operate that calculator and you can create a human life value, and that does it. I just enter some values into the calculator and it will give me the human life value. The human life value is how much money can I as a wage earner earn over the next X number of years? Well, that's what I have to replace by life insurance. It's called human life value. It's the best and most reliable form to use on an insurance policy for explaining how did you determine how much insurance you should have. And all I write is human life value. That's all I need to write on the application. They all know what it means. What the human life value is generally 10 to 15 times income. So I can pretty much figure out the human life value. If I ask the person their income, they say, well, I'm making $75,000. Well, that's 750 to $1,000,003, so 10 to 15 times. So 750K to 1,100,000. In other words, if the person had that much insurance and died, the family would have their debts paid off and an income for as long as he would have produced the same income. That's the human life value. So you don't need to get to that chart, you don't need this just in your head, you can do 10 to 15 times and be pretty close to the human life value. Okay?
I've learned, like in wrongful deaths where there's an accident, like a drunk driver, the state always goes 10 times income. 10 times income.
And as a defense attorney, or as a prosecuting attorney, I'd argue 15 times. And use that calculator to show them that 10 times isn't enough. Because there's other costs that are gonna be associated with this that the 10 times figure doesn't take into account. So 15 is your more accurate figure. All right, that's step 1. So in a client's mind, I'm gonna get set an amount of insurance. So right now, by writing that down, what does that do to a client's mind?
They see it.
They see it, 750,000 of insurance, $1 million of insurance. So I'm not gonna startle them by talking about $1 million of insurance. All right, so I write it down so they see it. Step 2, here's the key principle. Live on less than what you make and put the rest away at compound interest. That's the biblical principle. All right? The way I say it is, a dime out of every dollar is yours to keep. Hang on to it. Do you realize that if a 20-year-old simply took a nickel out of every dollar, put it away, did no more than that until they turned 65, that amount of money, that nickel, would recreate 100% of their income for the rest of their life? If they wait until they're 30, they'd have to put a dime away to do the same thing a person could do it for a nickel at age 20. If you wait to age 40, it'll take you 20 cents to do what you could have done for a dime at 30, what you could have done for a nickel at 20. And if you wait till you're 64, you could put away 100% of your income and only create 1 year's necessary income. It's too late by then, isn't it? What's the moral of the story?
Start putting
Start early. So
now.
again, if they're earning $7,000, $75,000, I write the number, $7,500 there. Why? Because that's a dime out of every dollar. I want to get that solidified into their mind. Okay, because that's what they should be putting away. They may not be able to start at that level, but that's the level I want to be thinking about. Step 3, Emergency money. Emergencies always happen. Unfortunately, when they happen, I don't have anything set aside, so I gotta go over here and dig into something I'm trying to establish, right? But if you put 3 cents out of every dollar away, that 3 cents out of every dollar will generally pay for most emergencies that happen. Because think about it, the cost of an emergency is based on the price you paid for the item. The more you make, the higher price you pay. The less you make, the lower price you pay. It tends to cost you less, but the number that came out is 3%. So if you take 3 cents out of every dollar and set it aside into an emergency fund, where you have somewhere between 3 to 6 months of emergency money. What's the difference between the 3 months and the 6 months? The amount of debt you have. If you have no debt, 3 months of emergency money will do it. If you have a lot of debt, 6 months of emergency money is necessary. So the more debt you have, the more emergency money you need to have, setting aside. But 3 to 6 months of necessary income, not earned income, necessary income, budgeted income, should be set over here in an emergency account. And then you will be spending that along the way, but you'll also be replacing it with your 3 cents out of every dollar. Step 4 then is proper budgeting. Then learn to live on that other 87%. So what I have successfully done by just going through the first 4 steps, and by the way, if I just get to the first 4 steps with an individual, I have placed them in the top 4% financially in the future. You understand that? That's all it takes if I just do the first 4 steps. Live in less than what I make, put the rest away at compound interest. A dime out of every dollar is mine to keep. Hang on to it, put it away at compound interest. And by the time I retire, I will have enough money to make sure I can live the same standard of living I've grown accustomed to living. Isn't that interesting? How much risk have I had to take? 0. If I want to get to that top 1%, then I move on to step 5. So the key here is I move people from a 110% position to a 90-10% position. Now if I do 5 steps, 5 and 6, I'm moving to a 70-10-20 position. Where as I get raises in pay, I put more of it away. As I pay off bills, I start putting that away instead of creating new bills. And I'm working toward being debt-free. And that was the second principle I learned. Work toward being debt-free. So the first 2 principles I learned as a 19-year-old from my mentors was live on less than what you make and put the rest away at compound interest and work toward being debt-free. And I literally graduated from college with money in the bank and no debt. And I got into real estate right after that. So I was buying a house as a 21-year-old. Because I had the money to do it. Why? Because I had saved it earlier on. All right? The sooner you start these principles, the sooner you can take advantage and reap the rewards of them. Okay, so the 70-10-20 is learn to live on 70% of my income, put 10% over here and 20% down here.